I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, December 10th, City of Andover Council meeting. We'll start off with a short roll call tonight. To my left.
Caroline Hale, council member.
Troy Tabor, council member.
I didn't mean for you that you were short.
I know what you meant.
Per se. Ben Lawrence, Mayor.
Greg Schneider, council member.
Mike Warrington, council member.
Mike Keller, Police Chief.
Donna Davis, Chief Financial Officer.
Mike Roosevelt, Deputy Fire Chief.
Lance Onstadt, Assistant City Administrator.
JT Klaus, City Attorney.
Les Mangus, Community Development Director.
Susan Renner, City Clerk.
Jennifer McCausland, City Administrator.
All right, item 3 this evening is the invocation. I see Pastor James Gillespie here from Andover Baptist. Thank you for joining us.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you this evening, Lord, and we thank you for this season, this time that we remember the greatest gift ever given, that Christmas gift, your Son Jesus, who came, who lived, who died on that cross for our sins. Lord, we thank you for that. Lord, we also thank you for those who serve our city, Mayor Lawrence, Lord, and all the council members, our police staff, Lord, and the fire department. Lord, we just thank you for their service. Lord, we just pray that you bless them as they serve us and serve you. And Lord, I pray for wisdom for all the business here tonight, Lord. I pray for open hearts and open minds, Lord, and may all the business that is done here be your business. Again, Lord, we pray your blessing upon this evening. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus, that we pray. And everyone said amen.
Would you stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're so fast, we could hardly get over there.
It's all good.
It was fun.
All right, item 5 this evening is a public forum. Is there anyone here that wishes to say anything? This would be the time. If you want to talk about anything, this is the public forum.
I'm going to go up and speak myself, if I can, for a public type thing.
Go on.
Okay. Does anybody else want to come up here and speak first for the... Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, actually, I'm having a challenge here. Give me a second. Maybe I found... Yay! Okay. Hi, I'm Troy Tabor, 607 East Crescent Lakes Drive in Andover. I'm talking today to the community about something called CASA. For those of you that don't know what CASA is, it's Court-Appointed Special Advocate for Children. And I was asked by a friend to be on the Tri-County CASA board, and Tri-County is Butler, Elk, and Greenwood counties, and it's the 13th Judicial District of Kansas. My wife had served on the Sedgwick County CASA before, so I kind of understand what CASA was about before I got on the board. And CASA trains and manages volunteers who are appointed by judges to watch over and advocate for abused and neglected children, and to make sure that they don't get lost in the legal and social service systems or to languish in inappropriate group or foster homes. It's different than the Scarf House in that a CASA volunteer will stay with the child from the very beginning all the way through to when they're put in a home at the very end, and it could last up to a year and a half. And it's just it's an unfortunate need that we have in our community, but it is a need. And so with the neglected, there are neglected children and abused children and in need of a CASA volunteer, and there aren't enough volunteers. We currently have 23. Tri-County CASA is in need of volunteers and donations. And when I'm talking, since there's so many people here tonight, it's nice to have this type of a crowd. What we're looking for is people that would be able to take a little time out of your life maybe and be a volunteer for CASA or get to understand it a little bit better. Talk with me later if you'd like, or you can go to the Tri-County CASA website as well. And if you don't have the ability to be a CASA volunteer, we're of course looking for donations as well. So as a friend of the community, that's what I'm asking tonight. is that somebody or people would want to be volunteers or to help out with CASA. So that's what I had for today.
Okay, so we're still in the public forum. Would anybody like to speak? You can cover any topic you want. If you could give us your name and address for the record, that would be great.
I'm Sheila Stoffer, and I live at 252 South Fairway Circle. I'm just going to read this. I have lived at 252 Fairway Circle for 23 years. I'm addressing the golf course. I have seen the Andover golf course in all its seasons of ownership. The course is in its best years under Chad, recent manager who is dismissed. The work that Chad did to improve our course under the stipulations of the city are commendable. I believe the Andover golf course is one of the hidden amenities of Andover. It is the reason we bought our lot and built 23 years ago. Our daughters enjoyed being able to golf and be on the Andover Central golf team, and my husband has maintained a golf membership. I have watched groups of men and women enjoy this course. I have talked to many people over the years who aren't residents of Andover, but love our course and come golf regularly. I've seen husbands pushing baby strollers as they went around the course, obviously giving a new mom some rest and dad some time to do what he enjoys. I've seen generations golfing and laughing together. I've heard whoops of joy, laughter, and a few grunts wave off the course. Middle school, high school, and college students enjoying a break from studies. We've even worried when we haven't seen a regular out golfing. It's all a part of who we are. The Andover Golf Course joins people together, provides exercise and a purpose. The Andover Golf Course is for everyone. One of the arguments is that there are other courses nearby. Yes, that is true. If you want to pay exuberant membership fees, which for some is more than they can afford, Andover Golf Course is affordable for everyone, no exclusions. The Andover Golf Course has a nice clubhouse, which can be used for small group gatherings and a place to enjoy conversation and snacks. Andover Golf Course is used year-round. Even in the winter, with inches of snow, we've seen people playing. The cart path would enhance the present course. Having a concrete pathway that has maintained and could be used in all weather would be an added bonus to the course and allow for more usage in inclement weather. The city of Andover is responsible for signage in all parts of the city, and I feel that advertising the golf course and posting signage would bring more golfers to our course. Those are a few of the issues that I have heard brought up. People inside and outside Andover do not realize that they have a city course, that we are open to everyone, and that we have this great perk that brings people like us who wanted to live where we could afford golfing that choice. We have a friend who wants to buy on the golf course, leaving Wichita to come here with his family. But if you're turning it into a park, they aren't interested. It does make a difference in this city. The golf course should be another amenity of the city as much as the soccer fields, baseball fields, central library, and park that my tax dollars are paying for. I don't negate others having what they want for recreation. Don't take away this golf course because you don't feel it's worth having. This was designated a golf course and should stay a golf course. Bottom line, I want it to stay a golf course. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well done. That was nice.
Any others? No one? No takers? One more. Yes? There we go.
Once again, thank you for allowing us to speak. We appreciate it. My name is Lavanis Logic, and I live at 907 West Putter Circle. I got two things. So you want me to ask and then go sit down and come back, or you want me to do them both?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. So today they had the survey on the Facebook page you had the questions to answer, and they were extremely biased. They were only regarding the park. What would you like in the park? What would you like? It really didn't. Question 7 was addressed. It was to choose the 5 top amenities that you wanted in the park. And you could not answer that question. You had to. So someone in our community reached out to Jennifer McCausland, and she retracted that. So you didn't have to answer that about the park. I want to know what happens to all the surveys, or how many surveys did you get on that?
Last count I've heard is just over 70 so far. Around that time, there were less than 30.
Okay, what are you going to do with the less than 30 that voted that had to choose before that number 7 was?
To be clear, Mr. Mayor and Council, we don't feel the question was biased. The question said, if this were to be turned into a park, which of the 5 would you, which are the top 5 that you would prefer? We feel like that's a legitimate question. The issue was forcing people to answer the question, and that's what we removed. So I feel like the question is still valid, because if it becomes a park, we would like the input as to what you would like it to include. If you don't answer it, then you just didn't provide input on that option.
So it seems like maybe a question like that could have been answered when it was finalized, when it's like, okay, people, you're getting a park, what would you like? Instead of making us answer a question about the options at the park. Do any of you guys agree with that?
I agree with, I think it was just asking you, if it becomes a park, which features would you like? And I understand why you feel like it was biased, because you absolutely don't want it to become a park. But I don't think the question was saying, it's going to be a park, what do you want?
Okay. Okay. The other question I have, what is it going to take for you to lift the restriction on the deed? How does that work to change it from a golf course to a park?
We're researching that issue. It will certainly take a removal from the restriction of the deed, but there are numerous other matters that staff has been compiling that will need to be reviewed before we can definitively answer that question. But a release from the restriction would certainly be required.
The reason I asked that is the comment last night was made that the restriction on the deed would be lifted within a couple weeks, is what you addressed us to the crowd.
I would expect it sometime soon. We have verbal commitment from the person who actually deeded the property to the city of Andover and put that deed restriction on it, that he would not have a problem releasing that. So, you know, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months, it doesn't really matter.
So it just requires his signature, and it's that simple, and that's done, and...
Well, I don't know if it's that simple. I would, again, refer to legal counsel, but...
That will certainly be required. We haven't determined what, if anything, else might be required.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that.
Go right
Even
ahead.
if you do have that restriction lifted, that is not saying that it can't be a golf course or that it won't be a golf course. I would love to see the golf course be used by people and have it be something that has a lot of use, and I think that would solve the whole problem. So maybe spend some time working on how to really get the golf course being used by people. And maybe if you know now, whoops, we could lose this, we better get out and use it. That could make a difference.
I think the issue with getting the restriction off the deed is to allow this council or future councils a degree of flexibility when it comes to the future of that park. Should it remain a golf course, I don't think any of us up here are going to have heartburn with that, and I think the neighborhood would enjoy that. But that's not to say that it will always be a golf course like it always has been. You know, we tried to engage operators to come in there and do things. Fortunately, they didn't keep a lot of great data, so we have very limited data. I hope with a future operator, if we get one, can help us collect more and better data to determine what the future of the course will be. So we're a little short of information. That's why we had that meeting last night, and I appreciate a lot of you. I see a lot of you here that showed up to that same meeting. The questions maybe be skewed a little more toward the park, but if it's going to remain a golf course, we know what the golf course needs. If it's going to become a park, well, we have no clue what you would want there, and that's why we're gathering that information. And we'll hold on to that. We will also compile all the answers to the questions that you were given last night and come out with a summary for all of us to review. And, well, let me rephrase, all of y'all to review But so you know, we don't know. All I know is we got a very short time window to get something done. Anyone else?
My name is Danny Yunker, and I live at 206 Dogwood Court here in Andover. I attended the meeting last night, and what I observed was I thought it was a very passionate meeting. I thought there was a lot of people that were very passionate, and the takeaway that I got is that I felt that a lot of people wanted it to remain a golf course. We were kind of, as a resident, and I live on the golf course, we were told that our property values wouldn't be affected if it was a golf course or a playground, is what the presentation was. And the presentation was structured in a way that it was leaning toward being a park. I disagree with that fully. Ask the people on Pterodine. Anybody here lives on Pterodine? Anybody of the council members? Anybody? You do? If tomorrow the owners of Pterodine said they're going to close the golf course and they were going to turn it into a park, and instead of looking out your back door you saw a meadow, you saw a jungle gym set. We were told that our property values wouldn't change at all because of that. How would you feel about that? How would you feel if you didn't have any say-so about that? That's the way a lot of us feel. How are we going to be compensated, you know, for a diminished value of our properties? Everybody's value, everything they've earned is in their homes. And now we're told that we're going to make that decision for you. We didn't like that. We were told that only 7 members in Green Valley were members of the golf course. 7. And that there's only 7 Green Valley members that support that golf course because they're members of the golf course. How many members of the city council support that golf course? How many of you are members?
I was a member.
You were, but you're not now.
That's correct.
So you're not supporting it. Is that correct? I don't know why Green Valley was singled out. It's a city golf course. Why didn't they talk about some of the other subdivisions if they're members? And the reason it is because it's going to affect us the most. That's why we were kind of brought out, and that's why everybody there was Green Valley members for the most part. We did have a lot of people from Rose Hill. We had a guy from Rose Hill. We had a guy that lived in a whole different subdivision. He played the golf course. He liked it and all that. My wife works for the Wichita PD, and 2 police officers came to her today and said, what was decided last night? One of them lives in Rose Hill. He said, I play that golf course. What I've seen there, we've been there 14 years, is that the golf course has been left to die on the vine, essentially. There hasn't been any capital improvements that I can see. There's been their maintenance on it. They've done maintenance, but they haven't spent any money to fix it or to improve it or make, you know, a better golf course. There has, that I could ever see. You know, they mow it. Some of the trees, literally, some of the trees that I look at that I see, I trim them. I trim those trees because they're not being done. I think that if we made the commitment to make that a better golf course, you'd see better membership. You'd see more people playing it. We were given numbers last night that made no sense to me. They said it cost $75,000 to run that golf course, and then they said that they got those numbers from some of the people that ran it, but then there was some issue with maybe some family members working there, and they didn't report their income or whatever, so say it costs $100,000 to run it. But then we were told that it cost $200,000 to run a park. And one side of the mouth, they were saying, well, we're so worried about the $75,000, and we're going to spend $200,000 to stop that. That makes no sense to me. If it's a park, I'm originally from Hays, Kansas, and I lived right out my back gate when they built the Seven Hills Park, which is in Hays, which is the best park in Hayes. I bought a lot on the north end of it, so you'd go right out my gate into the park. And it was great, it really was. I thought it was fantastic. Then I started seeing all the traffic that is being brought in, and well, that's one of the things of life. People are enjoying the park, so they got every right to go in there. So you lived with the traffic. But then, even in that small community, after hours, the things that went on in that park, and that's just the way the world is today. We had a car pull off of the interstate with a stolen car, and people ran into the park and ran all over, and they had search houses and things in a small community like that. If you make that a park, it'll have an access right to Kellogg. There'll be an access right to Kellogg. It'll be the only park that I know of that has a direct access to Kellogg to go to the park.
Sir, I'm going to need you to wrap up your comments.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to need you to wrap up your comments. You've
All right.
been rambling on here a little bit.
Well, that's my point is right now no one knows when this decision is going to be made. And I think that the community needs to be a bigger part of it. I know a lot of people were upset that it was it's gone this far without anybody knowing. So can you tell me when this decision is going to be made?
I would expect within 90 days. I mean, we kind of explained that window we have last night, that growing season starts March the 1st. So if it's going to remain a golf course, either the city, our city crews are going to have to get in there and start, taking care of the greens at least, or a current operator will have, a new operator will have to be put in place.
What you did make mention real quick that there was somebody else interested in you, but you weren't really excited about their offer or something like that. I didn't quite get that. Or
you were at the same meeting?
Yes,
night?
I was at the same meeting.
Okay.
You said something that they wanted to be subsidized. Was that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is somebody.
So there is somebody. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, they wanted the city of Andover to pay them a fee and accept all the responsibility and liability and risk. They wanted us to, and just pay them a fee to management. If there are any losses, they'd be all on us.
And? I mean...
And nobody in their right mind would sign an agreement like that.
The public, quality of life in a public, in cities costs money.
Well,
I mean,
quality of life is a different subject than having an operational golf course that costs money. So the question we're after is, do we like that as an amenity? Sure. The people that play that do, but this is the rest of the community who doesn't play golf. Would they rather have a park that they can go to and enjoy, or rather have a golf course?
Well, tell me, I mean, why do we demand that city golf course cash flow?
We're not even asking it to do that.
Or break even. Tell me does the library break even? Does the park that we have break even? Does it do any of that, guys?
No.
It costs money to have those things in the community.
Sure does.
And the golf course, the city golf course, is just one of those expenses that you're going to have to learn to live with.
Less than 8% of people nationwide are golfers. And our parks attendance is well above that. Our library attendance percentage of population is well above that. You're asking 92% of the people in this community who don't golf to support a golf course.
That
they'll
that's
never
great.
go to.
It's like
I mean,
you're
that's
shooting from
the
hip with
reality.
these numbers.
Well, that's the reality.
I want to see a survey. Has anyone?
Well, that's what we're attempting to do.
Has anyone? Well, okay, 100% of that guy right over there wants to play golf because he's a member.
Sure.
Okay. My point is if you're going to make these claims and say 92% of the people don't want it, show me that. Show us that.
I didn't say they didn't want it. What I said is they don't play golf.
And I don't play golf. I don't play golf. I live on the course, and I want the course.
Listen,
and
we're
I
not saying
understand.
we're taking your golf course from you. We're saying it's got a problem. And if we wanted to keep it as an amenity, we got to know what it's going to cost us, because everybody's going to have to agree.
I don't think that's been fully looked at yet. You haven't. Last
That's
night
what we're attempting to do.
We didn't hear anything about costs to improve it to make a better golf course. We heard tons of talk.
That course right now has over $1 million of deferred maintenance, easily.
That's another figure that I think that needs to be researched where people will see it in black and white. We can say, okay, it's going to cost $10 million. Let's do a survey. Let's see what it's going to cost before we
Well, we
make
can't
this
survey
decision.
our citizenship to have them come up and guess a number of what it's going to cost. We're surveying to see how much is this course worth to them. Is it worthwhile to keep as an amenity? Is it worthwhile to subsidize? Those are the questions we're asking. And then, if it's the decision is to keep the course, then we got to figure out a plan to either have an operator run it or the city run it. And either one of those two choices are going to figure out a plan. How can we improve it? How can we make the
Were any of those
improvements to it?
questions on the survey that was on Facebook?
There are questions on there about how you feel the golf course should be funded, if it should be subsidized. There are questions about that, yes.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I guess I have a question.
Go ahead.
I noticed on the Green Valley 5th, 6th edition Facebook page that somebody put a survey on there. Is that person here by any chance? The specific question it says is, it's only two, it says, do you want to keep it a golf course or yes, park please, which is a very unscientific way to put it. Right? But on it, there were 153 people assuming all within Green Valley, and 36% of them said make it a park, and 64% said keep it a golf course. So I don't think that's a scientific survey. I'm just throwing out there that in your own community in Green Valley, go to your Facebook page and probably be good to take the poll so you can get your guys' thoughts on there and maybe comment on it. But you were talking about numbers and where you can see numbers of a survey, and within your own Green Valley, they're there now.
Which is also why we had our designer and landscape architect, who is a professional, who came up with all those numbers and the PowerPoint that you also saw last night. You know, so those weren't numbers that were just pulled out of the air. Those are professional numbers put together.
Well, I understand that, but he also said that our property values would stay the same.
Which is also,
That's not true.
well, that's your opinion, but there are studies out there that people have done, professionals, on land. So those are all true numbers.
Who do I go to when my property value doesn't stay the same? Can I come to you?
How are you going to prove that point? How are you going to prove your property value? Do what?
And resale value, I'm sure that the county is going to keep my taxes the same. I'm sure that was probably what he really meant, is we'll still tax you that higher value. But when you go to sell your house in 10 years, then you're gonna find out the truth. And my point too about the tear down bill. I mean, how much more clear can I make that point?
All right, we need to move on. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Scott Sexton, 2020 East Lotus Court. Sorry. I wasn't here for last night, so I could be completely wrong. My question is, if they do take the limitation of it having to be a golf course off of the deed, is there going to be anything on it stating that the city can't turn around and sell it in 10 years to develop more houses?
The question is no, but we would never do that. If you've been there last night, you understand that the entire property of the park, 57 acres, save maybe one or two, are in a floodplain.
Yeah.
That's why the developer of Green Valley neighborhood dedicated it as a golf park.
Makes sense.
A golf course. So no, nothing can be built there. No improvements
that's
can be
what
made.
that's just
no
what I
permanent
was wondering.
structures. How about that?
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good question, by the way.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we will close the public forum and move on to acceptance of the agenda. I don't see anything additional here tonight, do I?
No, Mr. Mayor, the only late change you may have seen in your email was just we reworded some motions on item 17, but the actual documents did not change at all, just the motions itself.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Mike to accept the agenda as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, we have a CALEA presentation.
Mr. Mayor, as you and the council are aware, the police department is currently undergoing an assessment, an on-site assessment for our 3rd accreditation, and our 911 center is going through the same assessment for its initial 1st accreditation. And here before you tonight, I'd like to introduce Chief John Bruce, our assessment team leader, and Lieutenant Paul Malech, who's assessment team member, who would like to address you.
Thank you, Chief. My name is John Bruce. I'm from Richland, Washington. I may not sound like I'm from Washington. I'm not. I'm a recent transplant. The law enforcement accreditation process focuses on standards that provide best practices related to life, health, and safety procedures for the agency. These standards are considered foundational for contemporary professional law enforcement agencies. The program provides a framework for addressing high-risk issues within that environment and ensures officers are prepared to meet basic community service expectations and prepared to manage critical events. Secondly, the police department has entered into a contract with CALEA, the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, as a standalone accrediting body as far as for the Communications Center. That program provides Communications Center with a process to systemically review and internally assess its operation and procedures. This program requires organizations to collect, analyze important data for the purposes of making sound operational and administrative business decisions, creating leadership and practitioner accountability. In addition, the focus is on quality assurance, interoperability, emerging technologies, risk analysis, resource access, and a range of other operational functions. And so they're digging in deep to give you, the city, you, the council, and you, the citizens, the very best police department that they can. And they should be commended for this. And if you want to come to a 3rd meeting in a row, come to my meeting. Tomorrow night, the police department is hosting a public forum for anybody that wants to come and address myself and my team member as it relates to the police department, the communication division, for being accredited. And so if you want to come there, it's at the police department. It's from 6 o'clock until we finish, hopefully no later than 8, but it is what it is. Be happy for y'all to come out, and if you want to speak, all you got to do is sign in, and we'll call you to the lectern. Thank you very much.
Anything to add, Chief?
I will tell you, we're looking forward to our 3rd accreditation. We won't know until March if we're awarded this. And if we are successful, if the Communications Center is successful, they will be the first 911 communications center nationally accredited in the state of Kansas.
Nice.
If someone is unable to attend tomorrow night, I'm going to be some of those, that type that can't make it tomorrow night. Wasn't there someplace where we could send an email or a message?
That is CALEA, C-A-L-E-A at AndoverKS.com.
CALEA at AndoverKS.com. And that's the C-A-L-E-A. Okay.
Or you can call in between the hours of 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock tomorrow at 316-927-6018. And one of us will answer the phone, and you can give us your comments, and we'll make a note.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring that out in case there were other people that were listening that would like to comment.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to item number 8, which is the consent agenda. That's items 8.1 through 8.5. Is there motion by Greg? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Mike to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9. As you're all aware, Mr. Nelson has officially resigned his position on the Andover City Council. He had about 2 years and a month, I believe, left on his term. PT, is the official action to accept the resignation? Does the council have to accept his resignation?
It's always advisable to accept the resignation because it marks the point in time where the city clerk can give an appropriate certificate as to membership of the council.
I thought we accepted it last week, but
We did. We voted and we accepted.
Not in a
No.
pub, we haven't had it since you've met.
all right.
I believe it came in the day
Anyone wanna
before
make
Oh, right,
Thanksgiving.
right. Officially, we did not do it.
Anybody want to make such a motion?
I'll make motion to accept the resignation of Councilmember Clark C.R. Nelson.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Caroline to officially accept the resignation of Councilmember Clark Nelson. So you're going to date that today then? Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9.2, this is typically done after election and new council members have a seat at the table, but being that CR was the city council president, we need to establish a official council president, at least for the interim here. This is typically nominated by the council. Council members nominate themselves or others and approved by the council. So I guess I would ferret that out and see who wants to oblige. I would like to nominate Troy.
Second that.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a motion by Mike and a second by Caroline to nominate Troy and approve him for council president. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
I would
carries.
have opposed that.
Did you just vote for yourself?
Apparently I did. I was going to oppose it, though, but I didn't know it would happen.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, if I die, you have to take over tomorrow.
One day. Sweet. That's all I get.
Yes. Item 10. Amended 2019 budget hearing.
Mayor and council, we will need to hold a public hearing on this, but this is basically a housekeeping function that we do at the end of every year. We just kind of clean up things. If you'd like, I can give you a brief summary of the 5 funds that we're amending. If not, I won't.
Council, what's your pleasure? They're in your packet. You want to hear them?
I read it in my packet. Anybody else, unless we want to do it for the public?
Is there anything out of the ordinary?
There really isn't. Basically, some park expenses for some new mulch, improvements to some of the parks. We had to amend the debt service because we did a refinancing. Even though it's an in and out, we still have to count one as revenue and one as expense. Like I said, it's all basic
Normal.
things that we do at the end of the year.
Recalibration. So, I need to have a public hearing? Hang on to those thoughts, Caroline.
Oops, yeah.
So, at this time, I'd like to open up a public hearing, ask if anyone in attendance would like to speak regarding the 2019 amended certificate. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move the discussion to the bench. What were you getting ready to say?
I was going to say I move that we adopt a 2019 amended budget.
Second.
Motion by Caroline, second by Troy, to approve the amended certificate as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We will need the mayor and council members. Susan has a copy. We do need all your signatures at the end of the meeting.
Item 11. Tell me why we have a cereal malt beverage license renewal. Is this a renewal or a new one?
This is a new license.
Okay.
For Dollar General. There should be someone in attendance. Here we go. If you'd like to step to the podium in case the council has any questions. It's a new license for them. It would be beginning January the 1st, 2020. And it's the cereal malt beverage, or what do we call, enhanced cereal malt beverage. Not a
Right.
liquor license, just a beer license.
Right. Any questions, council? No. Do you already sell beer now?
We're starting to sell beer in the state of Kansas. Sedgwick is going to be the first one in
Right.
the Kansas area.
So you're just getting
So,
prepped for this? You're just getting prepped to sell beer
We're getting
in Andover?
prepped, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approve the application for a 2020 cereal malt beverage sales license to Dollar General store located at 724 North Andover Road.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Greg, to approve the new cereal malt beverage license as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You look like you have a question.
No, I just really have something I wanted to tell you. In January, we'll have Spangles here for a liquor license. So
Spangles?
Spangles for margaritas. I guess they're doing it in Wichita now. So
Interesting.
just a
Thank you, sir.
heads up.
Thank you.
Good luck.
That's interesting. Will that be through the drive-through?
The drive-through.
That's right. That was Louisiana.
All right, item 12, Butler Community College project. We have a final plat in front of us.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is an item that several of your staff and several of the Butler Community College staff and partners have been working on for some time. We do have before you tonight the final plat, as well as developers agreement, petitions, engineering contract. I will let Les present that plat, but I would also like to point out that Dr. Kroll is here. So if she would like to say anything about the project, or if you have any questions, I did want you to know that she's in attendance as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Troy.
I'd like to make a motion then for 12.1 to accept the dedications in the final plat of Butler County Community College Edition as presented.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike, to accept the final plat as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12.2. Troy, you're on a roll.
I will point out, just before you approve, I'm really glad you're ready to approve, but I will point out that these developers agreements before you tonight do outline that Butler Community College will pay 60% of the improvements for Commerce and Yorktown, as well as the water line improvements, some incidental drainage, and the city at large will pay 40%. Want to make that point clear.
Since that was made so clear, I'd like to make another motion if I can, unless you wanted someone to talk about 12.2. No?
It's up to you. I don't talk about things unless I'm asked.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the developers agreement between Butler County Community College, or Butler Community College, and the city of Andover, Kansas, for the Butler County Community College Edition final plat. By the way, it says Butler County Community College in that one instead of Butler Community College. Is that okay? So Butler County
We'll
Community
take it out of
College.
your motion.
It is the name of the plat. Okay. Butler County Community College Edition final plat, which facilitates the development of the new classroom and maintenance building at the BCC 13th Street campus, and authorize the mayor to sign such agreement.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike, to approve the developers agreement as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 12.3, water and paving petitions.
Yes. I'm just going to finish these off. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the petitions for the Butler County Community College Edition required public improvements to include Yorktown Parkway paving, Commerce Street paving, Yorktown Parkway water line, and Commerce Street water line, and waive the requirements for financial guarantees.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike, to approve the water and paving petitions. particularly note that we have waived the requirement of financial guarantees. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 That's okay, my comment didn't come in quick enough.
That's all right. What are we going to say?
Just to clarify, since you mentioned it about the waiver of the requirement for financial guarantees, just in that, that's a courtesy that between other taxable.
Correct. We've done it for USD 385. We do it for the college.
On to 12.4, resolution of advisability. Like to make a motion to approve resolution of advisability related to water, paving, and incidental drainage improvements in and adjacent to Butler County Community College Addition on 13th Street in the city of Andover, and further authorize the method of assessment for such benefit district financing said improvements.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike to approve the resolution of advisability as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And on 12.5, the work ordinance, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing certain improvements at the Butler County Community College Addition on 13th Street in Andover, Kansas, as presented.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike to approve the work ordinance as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12.6.
Yes, for the Butler Community College PEC engineering contract, I'd like to make a motion to approve the engineering contract with PEC Engineering for professional preliminary engineering services related to the Butler Community College 13th Street expansion project as presented.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Mike to approve the PEC engineering contract as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You can.
I wasn't quite sure at what point I should make comments, but Kim Kroll, 222 North Emporia, El Dorado. I just want to say thank you. It's been a long process to get to this point, but we've worked hard with city staff on your end and our end, and just appreciate the fact that we're at the point where we are, and look forward to continued good partnerships and strong connection for education in the community. I just want to say thank you from our end to Jenny and Les and Steve and everybody that's been involved, council members and mayor. I know we've worked on this a long time, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for hanging in there with us. Took a while.
Item 13. We have a kind of a cleanup annexation, I should say. Who's leading this parade?
So the owner of the property, so when we originally platted and annexed and zoned the property just adjacent to the west of what you see depicted here, which is the site of the Meadowlark Elementary School, there was a boundary dispute at that time with the adjoining property owner to the east. That boundary dispute has since been resolved, so we're basically cleaning this up, this little 24-foot stretch or strip that you see here. So the first item is to annex that into the city. A petition has been received by the property owner, the school district, and then there will be a follow-up item here and a couple items to actually zone it, and then from there we will replat this 24-foot strip into the Meadowlark plat, which you have already approved and has already been recorded.
I recall this. Can you tell me the nature of the argument over that? Why that 24 feet was never included in the original plat?
So at that, I think at some point there was a motion filed in court over to settle the ownership of that. It basically had to do with a tree row, hedgerow, adverse possession situation. And I think the two parties eventually through that came to an agreement outside of.
So the owner on the east parcel claimed that was his by order of adverse.
Correct.
Okay, possession. So does this make this? Does it make the final plat, if we get down through these, of the new Meadowlark property owned by District 385? Does it make it contiguous then with this east parcel that's not in the city?
The part that we're annexing or the part that?
The part we're annexing. So
Yes,
right now, right now, you have USD 385, and you have this, I don't know, 17 or 20 acre parcel here, and then there's 24 feet in the middle. So the 24 feet, that lawsuit's been reserved. So these two properties now will touch each other, basically.
It will be assumed, so they'll replat it to include this 24, so what you see is two parcels there, more or less, will just be one parcel.
Got it.
I move to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation and approve an ordinance annexing the subject property.
Second?
Motion by Caroline, second by Greg to approve the recommendation and approve the ordinance annexing the subject property as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Go on.
it might be nice to for maybe JT to mention to the public what, with the dispute being it's abject, I'm sorry, I don't remember the technical term for it, but ability to claim ownership of, I guess, land that is not yours if you take care of it for a certain amount of time is what I recall that being. But just to kind of let people know what it is that was the original issue and what it means and how it was even an issue.
As I recall the dispute, the school district filed for a plat and annexation of the property, and the ownership was disputed by someone who claimed they had maintained the property for over 14 years. If you open and notoriously adversely possess property for 14 years in the state of Kansas, it becomes your property. And because of the location in of the hedgerow and a fence in connection with and different from the survey itself, in order to proceed, the school district just removed it at that time so that they could proceed with the platting and everything else. I was not made aware that it has been resolved, but if it has been resolved, this is the appropriate action to now take to annex the property and include it. I think that's what you were asking.
It wasn't necessarily just for this property, it was just in general to understand that there is a method or a way or a state statute that allows someone to actually take control of somebody else's land if they maintain and take care of that land for a specific period of time, which I don't necessarily agree with. I just think it's interesting, and I think that maybe people might be interested in understanding it.
Well, I hate to advise generally on legal matters because, of course,
Okay.
batteries are not included and your mileage may vary. But as a general rule, yes. In Kansas, if you open and notoriously, for instance, if you were to place a fence that was not on the property line, but rather fenced in someone else's property, 1 foot, 2 foot, 24 foot, and then you were to maintain that fence for the required statutory period of years and maintain the property on the other side of the fence, over a period of time, the property line at common law is actually moved so as to benefit the person who has maintained and claimed the ownership of the property. This actually is designed to remove disputes when later boundary surveys show up after someone's, quite frankly, lived in a house or lived on a property for 30 years, only to find out that the last 6 feet of their garden belonged to someone else. And so the statute is actually incorporating common law, so it draws a fine line when actually that occurs. I have to look it up, but I think it's 14 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Item 14, zoning amendments. Do I have a sheet up here for this one?
Yes, sir.
This is zoning case 2019-10. Okay. Do a little housekeeping here. I guess before I open these proceedings, I need to ask the council if anyone needs to disqualify themselves or voting on this case is because they have a conflict of interest.
No.
All right. We do have a quorum here this evening, is that correct? Four constitutes quorum. Okay. Has the city clerk received any protest petitions? determined those to be valid?
Yes, it is valid.
Okay. I'll ask council members if any of them have received the copies of the October 15th and November 19th Planning Commission meeting minutes, which summarizes the hearing on the case.
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask our zoning administrator to give us a brief background report on this case and recommendation from the Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission opened a public hearing on this case for a business zone with an arterial overlay back in October, and there was a lot of discussion from the public about the uses that would be allowed, and the applicant eventually offered up some amendments to his original application. So the Planning Commission continued the hearing to the November meeting to allow the applicant to clarify all of those amendments so that we had those all in writing. And Planning Commission continued that hearing in November and ultimately recommended approval of the application as amended to the MXR district with an arterial overlay that allows a few uses that were special and conditional uses in the MXR district.
So for clarification, before we have any conversation, being that we are short 2 governing body members, my thought is that, and especially since we have a valid protest petition, it would take 4 votes to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation. It would also take 4 votes to overturn it. And I think by a simple majority, well, it'd have to take 3 votes to return it to the Planning Commission level. So that question was asked last time, so those are your facts and figures. And I guess I'll ask any of the council have any questions or comments on this.
I had one question for clarification, I think. One of the items that was brought up was that one of the people protesting it said that he didn't feel like it met the comprehensive development plan use for that property, but it was addressed by the developer that it did meet the comprehensive development plan for that property, but there was no discussion on the bench necessarily other than to just vote yes. So you being the one that I would think that would have the right answer for that question, does it meet the comprehensive development plan use for that property as designed?
Sure.
Or was it even outside of the comprehensive development plan?
That's a pretty common misunderstanding of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan recommends this parcel to be residential. That doesn't mean that it's limited to single-family residential. It's residential of any type, multifamily, 2-family.
Yep. Okay, so obviously it does.
Yes.
Or are you talking about like medical use as well?
That was one of the options, yeah.
Like senior citizen medical, like,
Those are residential uses. Nursing home or
Nursing
an
home.
assisted living are residential uses.
Okay. I have a question to the developer, if we can do that.
Does he have a good present tonight? Where's designee? Evening.
Brian Lindeback, 411 North Webb Road, MKC Engineering on behalf of the owner. I'm not the developer, I'm the agent for the owners.
Hey, Brian.
Developer would be someone who is physically redeveloping the property. Right now, it's 2 single-family houses.
Have you come up with any ideas that's what you're proposing to go there?
Not at this time. There are concepts, but I wouldn't want to say one concept has higher merit over the other.
All right. You know, there's no commercial in this area, and I personally think that, I mean, if you try to put some type of senior citizen home there, that's really commercial. So I'm pretty sure that no one in that neighborhood that lives around that would really care for that. There's other parts of town that has that. If you keep it as a single-family residential, great. That's what it is already. But I almost think you're kind of wasting your time a little bit, by wanting to rezone it and 10 years down the road, put something there. But I kind of have an idea that I have a thinking that you guys have an idea of what you want to put there, but you're just not letting anyone know.
I don't know that has
It has no
A bearing.
a bearing on the zoning case, but what they can put there, should this be approved, is anything allowable in the MXR multiple family mixed residential district, right?
And those additional uses by virtue of the arterial overlay.
I think they need to come with a plan of what they want to put there before we consider rezoning it. That almost needs to kind of go hand in hand.
It's not common.
Well, it's not common,
Jump
but it's
into
also
this,
in a
you want me to?
residential area.
But MX is still residential use, other than the one caveat which you mentioned.
Right, which would be a concern.
I think we need a word of advice here.
There's nothing wrong with filing a speculative case for rezoning. The determination that you and the Planning Commission has to make is whether or not this zoning is appropriate for this property. I understand why it feels better when you know exactly what's going to be built there, but of course, the property is either suitable for the zoning or it's not, and if it's not suitable for this zoning, then the factors need to be determined that find that, and it's then not suitable for this zoning. Obviously, lots of property is zoned in advance of its use. In fact, that's in part the purpose of developing a comprehensive plan and comprehensive zoning. If it is not legally required that somebody tell you how they're going to use it, it is legally required that they use it within the zoning that's been applied for. And I don't have any I don't have any data regarding when or how that use might occur. You just need to determine whether it's an appropriate use of this property.
I've had many people in the neighborhoods there contact me on not wanting this to be rezoned. So I do know that that's a pretty good consensus of this neighborhood, that they would not like to see this rezoned because it's probably not going to end up as the single family that we want.
Mike, I appreciate where you're going with this, but the city of Andover just lost a case based on plebiscite, and that's what you're doing here. If you don't like it or don't think it's appropriate, you need to come into the factors and finding the Planning Commission recommended, and find out why you don't think they're valid. Tell us why they're not valid. Tell us why their approval and recommendation is invalid. Can you do that? Instead of just saying a bunch of people said they didn't want it?
So going back, I guess, to some of the previous, challenges we've had with approving zoning, and especially stuff that has had a petition against it, is that we have a process in place to allow zoning. And one of the factors has to do with if it's part of the comprehensive development plan, if it's going to adversely affect the surrounding community or not, and if so, what is the amount of, I guess, damage that could be done both directions, and is it feasible or not? There's a lot of factors, and in this, as well as the previous zoning case that we lost, as well as in the zoning case with the apartment complex on 21st Street, which if we would have voted down, I'm pretty sure we would have lost that case in the long run too. We have a process in place so that we can't just say, we don't want to have, a multifamily house there, because that's not fair. We don't own it, and neither does the people around it. They don't own it. They have a resource or a recourse in going through and getting the petition, which forces us to have a little bit more of a vote or more people voting on it. But we can never say, not in my backyard. which is exactly what they're saying, which is what was said in Teradyne, which is what was said at 21st Street. So it raises the bar for us a little bit, but in this case, I don't think by any stretch of the means are they overstepping and saying, hey, let's go build a mall. They're saying, hey, can we have multifamily and can we have a retirement community? Which in my opinion, different than yours, is a home. I mean, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go through and visit people in our, which is something that I've had the opportunity to do, and it makes me kind of sad, but it's definitely a home. So anyway, my opinion.
I would have a comment on it. I get concerned about that particular lot getting anybody to want to be residential on that. We are now talking, and we've had, public input wanting a light to go in there, so I think we're getting really close to making that a lighted intersection. Personally, if I'm going to build a home, I don't want to be on the corner of Harry and Andover Road with a home. So I feel as though that property owner is going to be a little more limited in even getting a single residence home there myself. So, that's just my opinion, but again, it's like, the people living around it not wanting it to be anything else. I just, from the property owner's perspective, I see that as being a piece of property that is not going to be highly desirable for someone to build a single-family residence on, with kids running around and playing, and you've got a big median that goes out through Andover Road. It might even be more awkward to get in and out of that property. I see that being something that's going to have to be, I don't know whether they would even use the Harry side. I don't know how it would work, but I just see that property being something a little less desirable for.
So we should put multifamily on all four corners then?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I understand their request for this, but that's just me.
Explain a little more of the arterial transition overlay district. What would that? Give me some potential uses. What would that allow? I mean, what was the Planning Commission's purpose of putting that?
Sure, and for those very reasons, Caroline, the staff and the Planning Commission have recommended that the property isn't suitable for single-family residential development, and that this multifamily with the MXR and arterial overlay offers some uses that might be more suitable for that corner. The underlying zone allows multifamily housing, everything from single-family housing up to multifamily housing, outright permitted. And then in that zone, there are a list of things that are permitted by special use and conditional use. The arterial overlay has brought those special and conditional uses in as permitted uses with a couple of exceptions. So here are those uses. All the uses allowed within the MXR multifamily residential district, which is all those house type uses. The permitted home occupation, permitted special uses, and conditional uses, except for a cemetery, mausoleum, halfway house, recycling center, or a rehab home. So the assisted living would be outright permitted. The nursing home would be outright permitted. A doctor's office would be outright permitted, rather than a special use where they would have to come back at a later date and apply to a specific use.
I just have one other comment, and I know this was years ago. This may have happened back in 1996 even, or no, it would have been more like 98, 99. But the property on Central, that is the State Farm property now, I know there was a big argument about letting that become an individual little business there, and that's just a beautiful little piece, and actually is very lovely sitting there, and I just have not seen that as a problem. But I also saw Central that same way, as maybe as people begin to want to sell that property, it won't necessarily always remain residential, at least on those big arterial streets.
Mr. Mayor?
Troy.
I'd like to make a motion, if I can.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the Planning Commission's findings of fact and recommendation for approval 2019-10 and approving an ordinance changing the zoning district classification from the SF-1 single-family residential district to the MXR multifamily mixed residential district and establish an arterial transition overlay district as presented.
Second.
That's great music.
That's good music. Music like a
Doctor, is that your phone? All right, we have a motion by Troy, second by Greg to adopt the planning commission's findings of fact and recommend approval for zoning case Z 2019-10. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed. Good. What are our options?
The motion doesn't pass unless the mayor decides to vote, if I'm counting correctly, at 3
And
to
I
1.
can only vote in the affirmative, right?
That would be the only vote that would matter, yes.
You guys gonna dig me on my last meeting?
I have I guess a question. This will come before us again when the PUD is put together for approval of actual structure or what's going to go on. Is that correct?
Sure, Troy. Again, it would have to be platted, so it would be back in front of the planning commission as to the lines of the lot and access control and so forth. And if it is used for a clustered type of multifamily or any one of those business uses, the medical office or even a assisted living home, it would have to go to site plan review. So there's actually 2 more reviews before it would move on to a building permit.
But it would not come to us again, right? It would be approved directly from them.
The plat would come to the city council for acceptance of the dedications.
Okay. So we made a vote today on approving the zoning. But I don't know if Mike understood that it'll come before us again when it comes to be what it actually will be, as well as go through site plan review for the same purpose.
I think he knows that. I think he's concerned what a possible use may be. But what I failed to see is any evaluation of the findings or factors were determined to be inaccurate. As I read them, I think they went through all of them thoroughly, and they arrived at a correct conclusion. So if the conclusion isn't correct, I'd like to hear why you don't think it's correct as it relates to the factors and findings. Can you make such a case? I do not think that changing the zoning for that piece of property that is completely single-family zoning.
So that would refer to subject character of the neighborhood, right?
To MXR, which is a different type of residential. I think it needs to remain within the single-family residential district without changing to MXR.
I hear you saying that, but can you point to me which factor or finding that you're talking about when you refer to that? Who's ever got the phone on there needs to shut it off, okay? It's rude. Okay. If you can't get it fixed, take it outside.
Well, I mean, there's one, item 6 right here, suitable or unsuitable for the subject property of its current zoning. I think it's suitable, as what it is right now.
What'd the planning commission say?
They concur that it's suitable of its current zoning.
Okay, so that would be in favor of not approving the zoning, right? The change in zoning, right? So it's suitable. You have any others?
I don't have the meeting minutes in
well-
front of me
Yeah,
right now.
they're saying how suitable or unsuitable is the subject property for current zoning, and the answer is the close proximity and high traffic volumes of Andover Road and Harry Street make the location less desirable for low-density single-family residential, and the Planning Commission concurred with that
Okay. Yeah, that was
assessment.
It's unsuitable.
That was the staff recommendation. So,
So you're saying it
so
is suitable?
It's suitable.
Okay. Any others?
Let me skim through them.
These are the types of things you would want to look at when you're determining whether to approve a zoning change or not. Not just saying, yeah, nobody in the neighborhood likes it. And I'm sure that's the case. Probably nobody does like it down there, but you got to have a valid legal reason for not approving it. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I mean, if you want to, vote on it, then you obviously have the option.
Right. And obviously I'm going to have to, but I don't have to.
I'd like to make a motion that Ben has to vote on.
I tell you what, I will cast a vote in the affirmative. Motion passes. All right, item 14.2. You guys wear me out sometimes, you know that? By now, I expect all of you should know what you're doing. Which zoning case is this? Is this 13? 12. Sorry. Okay, before I proceed with this hearing, I'll ask the council if any of them did disqualify themselves from participating in this case because they have a conflict of interest.
No.
This is regarding the Summerlin Preliminary Plan Unit Development District and Plan, right? Okay, has the city clerk received any protest petitions? Negative? All right, I'll ask the council members if they've all received copies of the draft meeting minutes of the Planning Commission dated November 19th, 2019.
Yes.
All right. I'll call on the city's zoning administrator to provide us a background on the case and the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
You may remember a few months ago, this same applicant brought a planned unit development plan to you for this single-family residential district. Upon the estimates for the improvements required, they determined that the improvement cost with the density that was first proposed just didn't fit the market. The special assessments would be unmarketable. So they brought back to us this amendment to add 3 more lots, which increases the density about 10% more and allows them to spread that special a little bit smaller to each one of these lots and make them more marketable. Planning Commission held the public hearing on it and recommends approval.
Okay. What would you guys like to do?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance to accept the Planning Commission's findings of fact and recommendation for approval for zoning case C 2019-12 and approve amendment number 1 to the Summerlin Preliminary Planning Unit Development District and Plan.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to approve zoning case Z 2019-12 based on the planning conditions, findings of fact, and this also includes approval of amendment number 1 to the Summerlin Preliminary Plan Unit Development District and Plan, all as presented. Further discussion.
Just a general statement, I think, on specials, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I feel like it would be nice if our developers would figure out how to roll the cost of infrastructure in an actual project and not do specials anymore.
Exactly.
Well, dude, it's increased the price of a lot.
It sure would.
Tenfold.
Yes.
It wouldn't be tenfold, but it would
Do you
definitely.
know what the
increase
improvement costs are?
65 grand
Per lot?
on this.
Most other states, it's in the lot. I don't know why we can't do it.
We know this is very specific to this region. The problem is, and we've had this discussion many times, it's the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County allow that. And if we were to go the opposite direction, we wouldn't get any builders to build out here because they don't want to upfront all the costs. They want the city to do it.
Completely agree with everything you just said. I was just making a general statement in the hopes that the developers of Wichita would somehow figure this out.
Never
with
gonna
putting
happen.
us in the back of the cities.
Never going to happen.
Probably.
They don't want to front the costs.
Well, yeah, I'll just make a comment there. I was surprised when we moved here, and we have been in Kansas, so you're right, it's just this region of Kansas even. I came from the Johnson County area. But if that were to be done, a homeowner knows exactly, so we're paying more, but you also get to build it into a mortgage, and you get, of course, they don't write that off anymore, do they? Never mind, that used to be the big excuse, but I guess
Well,
that's
it gets thrown into your escrow account.
It does.
But-
It is, in a more manageable way, as opposed to be hitting with those specials.
It's just a deferred cost.
Well, I agree. I would much rather, my next home, I'll be looking for one that I don't have to go with specials for sure.
Well, you're going to pay more for the lot. Do you have
Probably.
something to add?
Do I get
Before
to
I
go on my diatribe about this?
If you want.
Go ahead.
It's a really common misconception that Wichita is the only place that this happens. That's
You got
not
3
true.
minutes.
There are improvement districts all over the United States. Nearly anywhere that's growing has some form of the government front-ending the improvement cost. In Colorado, they call it a improvement district. In San Diego, they call it a special benefit. It has different names. It's the same mechanism where the government carries the cost of those improvements for the end user homeowner. It's just, Mike, you came from an area that didn't, but there are just as many that do.
I've lived in 13 states, and I've never seen it before until I moved here, and it's a very odd concept.
Just like that.
Texas, Colorado, California,
Kansas.
Okay, did we vote on
Michigan,
this?
Minnesota.
No vote? We still in further discussion?
That's correct.
Anybody want to talk about anything else? I think we had a motion by Greg and a second by Troy to adopt the Planning Commission's findings of fact and recommendation for approval of zoning case 2019-12. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14.3 is the aforementioned 24-foot strip of land. I guess I got to go through the zoning case 2019-13. I'll go through the formalities here. I'll ask the council if any of them intend to disqualify themselves from participating in this case or voting because they have a conflict of interest.
No.
Wow. Has the city clerk received any protest petitions on the case?
No, sir, our office has not.
I'll ask the council members, have they all received their draft meeting minutes of the Planning Commission dated November 19th, 2019?
Yes.
All right. This has already been explained to us, but if you want to add anything, Mr. Zoning Administrator, feel free.
I think you've covered it well.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the Planning Commission findings, excuse me, findings of fact and recommendation for approval for zoning case Z 2019-09 and approve an ordinance changing the zoning district classification from Butler County Agricultural District 40 to the SF-2 Single Family Medium Density Residential District.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to approve zoning case 2019-13 as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, Heritage
Mr. Mayor, I'm
First.
sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
We have to have a clarification. The motion was to approve case 09, and unless there's a flaw in my agenda, it's actually case 13, and I just need to make sure that's clear.
Thought I
that's
said 1-3. You said 1-3.
I said 09 because
Oh.
I believe it's
When I
incorrect.
repeated the motion, I said 13, but
As long as everybody agrees that the motion was for 13 and we can reflect it appropriately in the minutes. Does anybody disagree that they were voting on 13?
I think maybe you misunderstood. I thought he said 2019. Or maybe you missed the 2000 part and went to 1903 or something.
I'm pretty sure he said 09 because I think it's incorrect in the sample motion.
Yes.
I believe he read the sample motion and I believe it's incorrect in the sample
Okay.
motion.
Do we need a?
I can reread it if you want me to.
Wait a minute. Did we even vote on that? We haven't voted on it. We did.
You actually did. You actually did vote on it.
Okay, so we voted in the past.
Yes.
Do we need to rescind that motion officially?
As long as everyone agrees that he meant and understood that we were voting on case 13.
I'll ask the motion maker.
Yes.
In the second?
13.
Was it me? Yes.
I agree.
No, it wasn't you. It was Troy.
Vote.
Troy.
I agree with the vote.
Great. Okay, so we can move on? Yeah, item 15. Heritage First Edition improvements. Who's leading this?
You remember several months ago, you accepted the plat for the Heritage First Edition. These are the required improvements for that first edition of single-family homes. We've reviewed the plans and recommend that you accept those plans and allow us to solicit bids for opening on January 14th.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the water, sewer, and grading plans for the Heritage First Edition and authorize the opening of bids on January 14th, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to approve the Heritage First Edition improvements as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, looking at a bond here for a taxable health care facility.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, you'll see we actually have two bond ordinances before you tonight. Both are on behalf of the Ambulatory Surgical Center for Kansas Medical Center. JT can certainly provide us great insights into the bond council portion of this, but I believe Daryl Thornton is also here with Kansas Medical Center. He's our Chief Operating Officer. He may want to give us an update on the project as well.
Did you want to do that, Daryl? You awake? Yeah, come on up.
So very briefly, the project is right on schedule. We've received owner occupancy. State Fire Marshal is scheduled for Friday, and then after that we'll be waiting for a KDHE approval. And we're moving in supplies and equipment right now. It's an exciting project. 6 ORs and 15 pre and post-op beds will really give us the ability to increase the volume of surgeries for our facility. It's a great benefit. We're very appreciative of the city of Andover and excited about the future.
Do you have something to add?
No, just a reminder that the city issued a resolution of intent to issue these bonds last year and considered an approved tax abatement. This is just the final step in those processes. It is divided into two separate ordinances because, as the city administrator said, the first is for the equipment piece, which will be leased to a different entity that will end up owning the equipment than the real estate piece. I'd be delighted to answer any questions you have about the ordinance or about the bonds or how they work if anybody has any questions.
I can make a motion.
Go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance issuing $1.2 million in City of Andover taxable healthcare facility revenue bonds for the purpose of purchasing, acquiring, and installing furniture, fixtures, and equipment for an outpatient surgical health care facility and pay certain costs of issuance of said revenue bonds.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Greg, to approve the authorizing issue ordinance as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 16.2. Keep it up, Troy.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on that as well. Authorizing I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance issuing $5,031,640 in City of Andover taxable healthcare facility revenue bonds for the purchase of purchasing, acquiring, installing furniture, fixtures, and equipment for an outpatient surgical healthcare facility and pay certain cost of issuance of said revenue bonds.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Greg to approve this ordinance as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
It's exciting to see our healthcare facility grow when so many
Absolutely.
are shrinking. It's a huge asset to our community. We're very happy that you're still here and you're doing what you're doing. There's an issue that's been brought up about perhaps a state law that for healthcare or doctor-owned facilities that there's some kind of physician-owned facility. There's some kind of limitations. And I think that if, is there anything that I could do to lobby for you guys? I would happily do that. Go to the state and do that for you. And I think anybody here would do that.
They've been doing that for years. Myself and a former city administrator went up with some of the owners of the hospital before they were able to build it and testified before a Senate subcommittee. And they've been trying to kill it for years. So they haven't been successful yet, but you know, I don't know how they're going to unwind what's already done, but
Well, I'll be happy to help.
they have the
whenever I
power to
can.
do it. So
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you this much. Physician-owned facilities tend to have the highest rated level of care of any of them. And that's a fact. You can check nationwide. Because they're there, they're owners, they care. And KMC is a perfect example of that. We'll move on to item 17, stormwater management fees.
Mr. Mayor, Council, as you guys are aware, the city is required to hold a stormwater permit with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and the Environmental Protection Agency. Since that requirement was placed on the city did establish a stormwater utility fund in 2005 to ensure our compliance with that permit. This first item, so this is the official consideration of the official action of a previously discussed item at the workshop in November. This first item is the ordinance. The ordinance sets the rate structure for our stormwater management fees, which were established in that ordinance that established the utility to actually fund the activities of the city stormwater department. So our current structure separates our stormwater management fee into two categories. Currently, multifamily is on their own rate structure, and then everything else is on its own. So this is non-residential, single family are on the same. So what this has created is our revenue for our stormwater department from these stormwater fees, 93% of that is borne by our residential property owners in the city, with only 7% of our revenue funding our stormwater utility coming from commercial properties. Commercial properties with their significantly larger amounts of impervious surface, larger building footprints, parking lots are the primary cause of concern for the potential pollution that the city is required to eliminate. So the ordinance before you restructures those rates to where our single and two family residential are one structure, one schedule, if you will, and multifamily residential and commercial, or non-residential, I should say, are separate. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that base rate is when we talk about the resolution, but the ordinance purely separates single family and two family, and multifamily and non-residential.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance repealing and replacing subparagraph UU of section 19-505, as well as sections 19-521, 19-523, and 19-525 of chapter 19, Article 5 of the Code of the City of Andover for the purpose of amending the current rate structure of the city's stormwater utility fees.
It's a motion by Greg. Was there a second?
Caroline, why don't you second it?
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg and a second by Caroline to approve the stormwater ordinance, right? Further
Yes.
discussion.
Yes, I was going to ask a question, which is why I didn't second it, but it's probably not something
You
I'm
can second it
supposed
and
to.
still not vote
And
for it.
still ask it. Oh, okay, very good. And I'm not saying that that will happen. When we've been talking about this the last few weeks, or workshop, I believe it was, I kind of had it in my head that we were talking about flat fees amounts, or maybe we were looking at other cities that did flat fees, and yet when I see this, it seems like it's more percentages. So, I mean, what are we, in other words, when I look at that, can you tell me, okay, what's a dollar amount that residential would pay versus?
So that will come when we get to the resolution, but I can tell you what the proposed amounts will be. It'll basically be a difference in 10 times between the 1 and 2 family residential and the multifamily and commercial. So a class 1 acre, 1 and 2 family residential will be $2 per month, and a class 1 multifamily or commercial would be $20 per month.
Okay, that was what I was wondering, because it seemed like I couldn't remember that those were the amounts that we were talking about, but thank you for clearing that up. Okay, my second stands.
Okay. You telling me the stormwater fees haven't risen since the inception of our stormwater department?
That is correct. This will be the first
And
increase.
we unwound these fees from the ordinance and put them in a resolution, right? So they're easily
Correct.
amendable?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so that was a motion by Greg and a second by Caroline to approve the ordinance as presented, right? Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17.2 was right on point with your question there, Caroline. These are the fees.
Right, and I will move to adopt a resolution amending the stormwater management fee and setting the rates charged within the city of Andover for stormwater utility management.
Second.
Motion by Caroline, second by Greg to adopt the resolution as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would like to point out, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is in effect on March 1st, and the city staff will take time to communicate this increase to the businesses and multifamily, so they're aware of that change coming in 2020.
Item 18, 2019 audit.
I never have anything to say, and tonight I get 2 items. How lucky can I be? This is just doing our engagement letter with our auditing firm, George Bowerman and Knoll, to do our 2019 audit. This was part of their bid that they did several years ago. This is the 5th year of that. The base rate will be the $19,440 plus any copying costs, mileage, that type of thing. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign the annual audit engagement letter with George Byerman and Knoll, PA, Wichita.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Caroline to approve the letter engagement for our annual audits. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, City of Andover year-end boundary.
Mayor, council, every year that the city changes its boundaries, we're required to consider or pass a resolution declaring what that new boundary is. So in 2019, the city completed 6 annexation cases. The legal description that's included in that, in the drafted resolution, contains those 6 annexation properties.
I know you've told us this before, but what is the squares inside the city limits? What are those?
You talking about on the map?
Yeah.
The islands.
Yeah, so
The
that's
square.
it's an island that's outside of the city limits.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve that resolution here.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Caroline to approve the declaration resolution as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 20 is an executive session. This is regarding non-elected personnel. I think it just needs to be the governing body. If you want to invite the city attorney, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I want JT.
There you go. Okay, so
Make him earn his money.
So what you want to do is make a motion to recess an executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 4319B subsection 1. The meeting will include the governing body and the city attorney for approximately 10 minutes. Open meeting will resume at 8:50.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, motion by Greg, second by Carolyn, go into executive session. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any yays, nays? All right, move on to item 21. This is the 2020 employee pay plan. Is there any motions?
I move to approve the 2020 salary pay plan as recommended by the Salary Review Committee.
All right, motion by Caroline, second by Troy to approve the, the 2020 employee pay plan as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So item 22, this evening we have yet again another mayoral appointment. With CR resigning, we have one last chance here to get somebody on board. As a lot of you know, I sent out emails and there were Facebook notifications and Twitter, and we were trying to attract candidates that wanted to fill that vacated seat. It has 2 years and I think 1 month on it. Your mayor-elect, who's sitting in the back there, Mr. Price and I, met last Friday, and we went all over, through these together, and we reached some mutual decisions on it. The person we would like to nominate is Mr. Michael Henry. He is in the audience this evening wearing that fashionable bow tie. Lives in the Cornerstone neighborhood, which is a little bit important consideration, at least for me, based on the stuff that we had to go down at our last meeting. We don't have districts, I know that, and we don't have precincts, but y'all are elected to represent the city at large, but we didn't have anybody at the north end, and we both thought it'd be appropriate if we did. So that is my appointment, and I would need you to approve that appointment to immediately fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. Nelson.
I will move to approve the mayor's appointment of Michael Homer Henry to immediately fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Clark Nelson.
Second.
And motion by Caroline, second by Greg to approve my appointment of Michael Homer Henry to the Andover City Council. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Should we do a little swearing at him? That's one. All right, let's do it. All right, stand in front of the microphone here. I just want you to repeat after me. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Michael Henry,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and ordinances of the City of Andover,
and the ordinance of the City of Andover,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
as City Council member
as City Council member
of the City of Andover, so help me God.
of the City of Andover, so help me God.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I have a chair right up here for you.
She has one up there.
Right. I know. All right. Well, welcome aboard. You're just in time for the meeting to end.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, we're down to member items, am I correct? All right. Mike, you want to start us off for a change?
Sure. I want to congratulate the Andover Central High School football team for making it to state and coming in second place, but I would like to say they are the public school champions.
Yeah. Public school. I like that.
Great. I want to thank all the city employees that helped last night at the roundtable. Appreciate y'all doing that. You've done a good job. And I want to thank the mayor for his service, and I've had the fun opportunity working with you the last 2 years, and wish you the best.
Appreciate that. Troy.
I'd like to concur with appreciation for everything you've done for the city. You've been at it a long, long time.
Long time.
For me, definitely a mentor and someone with an exceptional amount of knowledge about what's happened and why we do things in the city of Andover. And I feel like it's a pretty massive hole, but I think we'll do okay. But it's still a massive hole, and I'll probably be calling you. And Caroline, thank you as well. You've been on the council for the same amount of time, or?
As long as he's been mayor, I've been on the council, but he was serving on the council 2 years before I joined.
So once again, for the experience and all the dedication that you and you've both put into this city for a long time, it's pretty amazing to see someone do that, go through a big portion of their life dedicated to helping a city. It's pretty exceptional, and we thank you for doing that. Yeah. Other thing, obviously, welcome, Michael.
Thanks.
It's pretty awesome that you're here, and dig the jacket. And orange is my favorite color, by the way. Also, we had a chamber event, the Andover Chamber Jingle Mingle social event, which was well attended. Lots of really cool stuff that people purchased, and it's a fundraiser for the chamber. And it's even more than that, it's a way for everyone in our community to get together, talk, drink, eat, and just get to know each other. It's one of those types of events. And next year, I would recommend that everybody in the entire city show up to it, because it's pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh.
We might have to do it somewhere else if that happens, right? That's all I got for tonight.
Caroline.
Boy, lots to say after being here as long as I've been, but it's really been an honor and a privilege. And when I look back over all the years of my connections with the staff and different contractors that have worked with the city, it's like a great big family. And I know we've celebrated marriages and births and memories of death, and so I'm going to miss you guys. It's really been great. But just in going over some of the highlights of it, I just have to say how proud I am to have worked with Ben on all these years. He's done a great job of leading us, but if I look back at the new police department, the library, improvements in Central Park and 13th Street Park that we've done, the new city hall, changes in the wastewater, new street department facilities. The Red Bud Trail was a biggie that I know I really championed and worked hard to get us through on, and I'm very proud of that. And with the police department getting into their CALEA accreditation, that was such a huge honor for the city, and such a, when I look at all these things that we have done, makes me really proud, and very, very proud that the city of Andover was named the 38th best city in the USA, and that's pretty incredible accomplishment. So I'm proud to have been a part of that for the last 17 years. And so thank you all for giving me that opportunity.
I just want to thank everybody for the Mayor Ben especially, and Mayor-elect Price for the opportunity to do this and serve the community. I feel like I have a passion for the community, and moved to Andover, I think, because of the stuff that you guys put in place, and hope to keep doing that for the future as well, and be a good part of the team. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, staff have anything else? Stop it. Right.
Okay, we're going a little rogue tonight. I know, because it's the mayor's last meeting, so he
It is.
can't be mad at me, right?
Officially my last meeting ever.
Is your mic on? Okay. All right, so the city staff has a proclamation we would like to read.
You can't do that. Only the mayor can.
I've signed it. I don't know what
Oh,
that
okay.
means, but I've signed it. Whereas the city of Andover, a mayor-council city of the second class, has a governing body comprised of an elected mayor, 6 elected council members to 4-year terms. The governing body is a policy-setting board with the city administrator to implement those policies. And whereas countless hours have been spent listening to the citizens of Andover, during a 4-year term, they will spend more than 288 hours just attending official meetings. Sorry, Homer. This does not include participating in community events such as Greater Andover Days, Hometown Christmas, or the time spent speaking to school classrooms or community organizations, and the awards, recognitions, and proclamations handed out. Whereas public servants come from many backgrounds, including business owners, doctors, healthcare employees, aircraft workers, lawyers, retirees, teachers, and anyone in our community willing to provide their knowledge to make the city of Andover as great as it is today. And whereas, with the upcoming change in the governing body, the city of Andover will lose nearly 5 decades of combined city government knowledge and experience. And whereas during their tenure, the city has doubled in population from 6,600 to 13,300, and the valuation has increased from $50,550 to just over $153 million. They have considered in excess of 600 ordinances, 500 resolutions, 150 zoning cases, and increased the size of the city from 7.81 to 10 square miles. And therefore, in recognition of their service and to all of those before and those who will come after, the staff of the city of Andover hereby call upon the citizens of Andover to recognize with great honor and appreciation and proclaim the second Monday in January of every year as Local Elected Officials Day.
Well, I will tell you, I appreciate that. It's been a ride. There's been a ton of stuff going on, and I would be remiss if I didn't add to Caroline's speech about things we have done, and I'm gonna say amphitheater. Everybody knows that was my pet project, and it only took me 13 years to get it done, but by gosh, we got her in there, and I hope everybody comes out this summer and enjoys it. So. You don't have much to say. I will tell you one thing. For those you don't know, there is a gavel up behind here. It's been here the entire time that I've been here. Same gavel. It was actually in the old building. I've never used it. Not one time. So I hope you did not give me a gavel as a going-away present. My motto is, if you can't run a civil meeting without a gavel, you shouldn't be doing it. So I appreciate all the well wishes, and I've had a blast. It's a good time. So I'm ready to be done, and I think I've done my duty. So I'm glad to hand off the reins. You've got a very capable mayor coming in. So let's get out of here.
We would like to have everybody stick around for a reception that is able, and thank you for your years of service.
Okay, I get to make this last motion to adjourn this meeting.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Concert draws thousands of people from around the area to enjoy some great music.